placing both bets. Strategies drawn with passion and might. Great iron tactics will overnight. Set my lineup, it's time, gotta make that call. Dynasty dreams, I won't let them fall. Every yard, every play, it's all on me. The future's bright, champions you'll see. Hold the line and fight the sound. In Dynasty, we'll own this ground. Trading players, build it strong. In this league, we'll right the wrong.
I'm a rock guy, so I really like that new theme song. Welcome back to the office. Sherb is with me. He's right there. And then Nug is down there. That's our bearded dragon and gecko. And they're hanging out back there. Sherb's eating. We're back in the office for episode 3, part 2 of the Employee of the Month series, where we are taking a look at all of the rosters and introducing you to the Fiddy tree members and how they are set up as we get into the crunch time, getting ready for the fantasy season. And it hit me this morning that a lot of these rosters are going to change so much in the next, probably let alone just week, let alone 3 or 4 weeks. So up until the season starts. So we're going to jump right in. We got 5 to get to today. 5, 55. We have 5 rosters that we have to get to, so we're going to jump right in, and we're going to start talking with my co-host, roster, Taylor. All right, here we are with Taylor's roster, jumping right into it. Taylor is an interesting combination. First, we'll scroll down here, and we will touch on the salary cap. 627 over 500. He's a little bit in cap cutting mode as well. But I'll show you as we go through this a little bit of the difference between his and some of the other rosters that are in the 600s. Because there is a little bit of a difference. It's not amazing, but there's opportunity here. So first we'll take a look at, of course, we'll take a look at Stetson Bennett, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson. Of course, Dak is one of the better fantasy quarterbacks for $55. There's a lot of talk last year about that being a really bad contract, and then he goes out and has a 400-point year as a quarterback. And is, one of the top 3 scoring quarterbacks consistently because of that offense. The Cowboys have been the highest scoring team in the last 3 years, if I may say so myself. Did it earn them anything? Absolutely not. But Dak is still a good fantasy quarterback, good fantasy asset. Russell Wilson getting 300 points, for $24. Well, it was 21 last year. Fantastic value, I think. Will that, repeat in Pittsburgh this year? To be seen. And then Kirk Cousins getting that massive $100 million guaranteed contract for 4 years. As long as he can return to his old self and remain healthy, he should be fine at $38. So the quarterback position for Kirk and his Cousins here is pretty set. Mr. Taylor has it down pat. The running back position, this is probably one of the deeper running back positions in the league, just the way it's set up. And it's tried and true the way that Taylor's done it, because it's all about drafting and just seeing where they go. Last year he drafted Tajay Spears, Zamir White, and Devon Achane, and Kendre Miller, I believe. I think those were all last year. I could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure I'm right. So, and then on top of that, he has, Zeke, who's was not only more fantasy advantageous last year in New England, but now he's back to Dallas where he'll have some sort of role. He also has Jonathan Taylor and Javonte Williams. And, Williams obviously had the downfall last year, the year before and last year with the injuries. But he's, honestly probably set up for at least a decent bounce back. And Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good end of the season as well. Had 173 points in under half the season, I believe, or about half the season. So very deep running back position. Antonio Gibson's the first name that stands out as a cut candidate here for $21. Dameon Pierce at $24 as well. So right there, you're already talking about $45. Just the usage there just doesn't make sense. Damian Pierce is going to be buried behind Joe Mixon in Houston now, and worked out for the short run. Not so much this the first. This will be the first year that Damian Pierce probably isn't valuable to a lot of people. So to the wide receiver, Treylon Burks. Sorry, bud. I don't think he has any value in dynasty leagues anymore. He's another one who's buried in Tennessee. Jerry Jeudy at $31 is a question mark as well. And you're talking about cutting some of these names. Those are the first two that maybe pop into mind. But the wide receiver room beyond that is still fantastic. Deebo Samuel, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, yes sir, and twice on Sunday. Love all three of those names this year. Chris Olave was 7th in targets last year. Deebo Samuel, of course, becoming much more of a gadget use. Also may get a boost as the rumors continue to swirl around Brandon Ayuk. DJ Moore now has a quarterback who can throw, we presume. And then a little side note, Jonathan Mingo actually has had a fantastic training camp. I'm recording this on August 5th. And so far he's had a good camp. So Dontavian Wicks was a great fantasy pickup, or waiver wire pickup at the end of the year. Got him for $1. He's now $4 because of our automatic salary increases. Again, for salary increases when the league year starts, $3 for offense, $1 for defense across the board. So, but as far as the cost cutting goes, I brought up Antonio Gibson and Damian Pierce. If you add on Treylon Burks and Jerry Jeudy, you're right at $100 right now already. So the wheels are churning, depending on what else happens. Tight end position, Cade Otton and David Njoku are the two names here. Again, great contracts. Cade Otton is he's probably looking like he could have one of his better years right now, coming up here in 2024. Had 116 fantasy points for $7 last year. Sure. David Njoku, 200 points for $9. Yes. And then it's a couple of dart throws. Darnell Washington is mostly a blocking tight end. Luke Schoonmaker. And then Cameron Latu, who did not play any all last year, so you'll notice that his salary did not change. He's still at $1. If you don't play a snap, you don't get any arbitration, or not arbitration, you don't get any automatic salary increase. Defensively, of course, you can cut some of these guys. Devin White, who's now in Philly, may be a cut candidate at $7. $5 for Jordan Hicks, probably not. Alex Singleton at $3. If he can repeat this, which it looks like he's still on the depth chart, it looks like he's still number one on that linebacker spot, so why not? Quincy Williams for $3, sure. C.J. Gardner-Johnson may have a big bounce back because he's back in Philly. Harrison Smith is getting up there in age. Antoine Winfield was one of the better safeties last year. Defensively, you can still cut down. Just in cuts alone, I feel like Taylor's very close to $500. And then it all depends on the draft capital. We do want to start talking about these draft picks when we talk about these teams. So Taylor has 1, 5, 2, 5, 3. It's at least 1, 5, and 2, 5. I won't go any farther beyond that. I wrote it down in my notes on my phone because I was super interested in it last night. And did I open that before we got here? Sure didn't. And here we are. So I'll get that open for the next one. It's at least 1, 5, and 2, 5. I know that in the first two rounds. So Taylor should be set up solidly to at least make, if the right moves are made, he can, and the right, breakouts happen. Tajay Spears, Zamir White in line for very good production at $11 and $9 each, or respectively, I should say. And of course, Devon Achane at $13. I mean, it is a wide open field for Taylor. Don't know if this will be the year, just because of the youth that is in that running back core. Running back, a very, very big position. But you also got to look at Jonathan Taylor. You got to look at Deebo. You got to look at Chris Olave. Tight end, honestly, still solid to have two starting tight ends that are top 20 tight ends. Njoku had a top 10 season last year. Cade Otton had a top 16 or 18 season last year as a tight end. So don't hate it too much. All depends on what he does with the draft. I could give a prediction, but I'd rather give a prediction once the rosters are set. So now we will move on to our next roster, which is going to be Little Buff Boys. It's going to be Jimmy coming up next. All right, moving on to the second team. It is Little Buff Boys, headed by Jimmy. Jimmy is in a decent spot. His draft picks this year, 2-2-2-7. 4, 7, 5, 6, 5, 8, and 6, 1 out of our 6-round draft. 60 picks. His first pick is pick 12, that second round, second pick, top of the second. And little history on Jimmy. He has he has a 69.
Nice. Nice.
Nice.
Nice. Nice.
69% win percentage all time. So, let's start off with from 2 years ago. This is a very different quarterback room for Jimmy. In my opinion, I don't have any statistical way to back this up, even though I could definitely look back years and see trades. I have not done that in all honesty, but I think that he makes probably some of them, probably more moves in any way as far as trades go than a lot of other people. He does take some chances, and it makes it very interesting for the league. But he also has the third or fourth highest win percentage out of anybody in the league. So it's kind of interesting that Jimmy's in this position. He has Jared Goff, as you can see down here. He has Baker Mayfield, and of course the big winner, C.J. Stroud, struck gold on C.J. last year. Interesting that Baker actually outscored C.J. C.J. must have missed a game somewhere. I thought that C.J. was very close to Goff. But anyway, 3 solid quarterbacks. No real reason. Contracts are fantastic, too. 15, 22, and 28. I mean, can't get any better than spending a mere $65 on 3 quarterbacks, and they're putting up over 300 fantasy points per year in our scoring calculations. So, yeah, like A minus maybe. B at no lower than a B plus on the quarterback room, in my opinion. Running backs. David Montgomery, Isaiah Pacheco, Jalen Warren, Aaron Jones. Najee Harris is a huge question mark in my opinion, $44. I mean, if he's going to run a similar snap percentage and a similar fantasy point to Jalen Warren, and it's going to stay that way this year, which it kind of looks through camp like that's going to be the way. If not, Jalen Warren will take the lead from Najee. I don't even think I'm holding on to Najee. So, Emmanuel Wilson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are in attendance on this roster. Only $572, only 72 above the cap right now. So, plenty of room, really. Wide receiver, again, pretty stout. The biggest names you obviously cannot overlook: Justin Jefferson. That man is something. Let's just put it that way.
Have you been up my wishing tree? It's where I come to think and dream.
It's Mr. Jefferson. Zay Flowers, also huge breakout potential. There's really no target competition for him besides Mark Andrews in Baltimore. So I think it's a good year to have Zay Flowers on any fantasy roster, let alone here in a dynasty league where he's going into his second year. He's 23 years old. Couple of the elder statesmen: Tyler Lockett, Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's not even elder; he's 28. But Tyler Lockett, I believe, is in his 30 or 31 year season. Robert Woods, who is basically AARP now. A.T. Perry was a dart throw last year. Could see some wide receiver 3 snaps this year. It all depends on how it breaks out in New Orleans. Jahan Dotson, who is kind of had a slow season last year, may have a better ceiling, slightly higher floor with Jaden Daniels, to be seen. No real easy. I mean, they're all pretty cheap. Jaden Reed also can't forget him. $11 for him. Tyler Lockett at 20. You know, a lot of these guys, you see 200 fantasy points. Justin Jefferson got 200 fantasy points and he missed 5 weeks. Chris Godwin, Zay Flowers, Tyler Lockett, Jaden Reed. You could argue that you can get rid of some of the other older, Xavier Hutchinson, Robert Woods for $4 a piece. But you can find the depth somewhere. All in all, great wide receiver room. Tight end, Dalton Schultz is obviously the leader. Cole Kmet had 181 last year, but it was on all touchdowns. So for me, I like the offense better of Houston, despite where Cole sits in Chicago. I think with the extra added pass catchers in Chicago, Cole Kmet falls down that root tree for me from Caleb, especially when you add in any potential running back. If you have any, that wasn't really something that you had. Caleb is still going to be running, so I guess it's a bit of a mix. But DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, assuming all of them stay healthy, it gets a little tough for Cole Kmet. Dalton Schultz isn't, I guess, in a better situation when it comes to pass catchers, but he is in a better offense, we should assume. And better offenses create better fantasy players. So, Kylan Granson, Michael Mayer, who it remains to be seen how Las Vegas is going to work in Brock Bowers with Michael Mayer. I thought it was very interesting that the Raiders went out and spent their first-round pick on Brock Bowers. I thought that was absolutely out of left field. It could hurt Michael Mayer a lot. It could allow Michael Mayer to continue to stay and kind of edge in as a 50-50 if they're running these two tight end sets. Las Vegas has Las Vegas. This is probably hurtful, but they have Las Vegas as the 6th worst offense in the league projected. So there could be some two tight end sets on there. There could be some one wide receiver sets, two tight end, and a running back, or two running backs. You could see a lot of flexibility with that line through Antonio Pierce, head coach in that team. So defensively, nothing really to write home about. We can just say, as of right now, there are names that could be cut. $6 Sam Hubbard, sure. Jonathan Allen at $5, I don't see it. Bradley Chubb for $2, maybe a keep there. Maybe Bobby Wagner and C.J. Mosley at $8 a piece. I'll try again. Got a couple other $2 cornerbacks. Deron Bland, if he's going to stay at $2, which he probably will, this number is obviously heavily inflated by the NFL record he set with the interception pick sixes last year. But even if he's getting 160, 180 fantasy points, this $2 is well worth it, especially with these new scoring models. And then a couple of really good safeties down here as well. Jordan Whitehead. Can't forget the IR. Tank Dell is another stashed wide receiver. Great draft pick last year. Hit the nail on the head with the stack, really. Taking C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell. And then, of course, Hayden Hurst and Cole Holcomb are also in the hospital room right now. So solid all the way around. I think the real key is trying to get rid of some of these either wide receivers, maybe you're trying to find a way to get up into the end of the first round if you want to continue this balance that you have of youth and veteran leadership and its potential. This roster was one of my top 4 last year, and it just didn't work out. Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins going down hurt him. Tyler Lockett fell behind DK Metcalf and was competing more with JSN. Jaden Reed, I don't even know if Jaden Reed was there. I think he was, because for $11 he had to be. But Jaden Reed was, the first few weeks was behind Christian Watson. Then Watson got hurt. Flowers was a rookie. Jahan Dotson didn't have the year that he was supposed to have. Chris Godwin didn't really have the year that he was supposed to have. You look at the running back situation. Montgomery was out for a few weeks. Pacheco was probably the glaring star and hit his targets, I would say. But yeah, so there's some things that didn't go right for Jimmy last year that could this year. So excited to see what happens for Mr. Jim. Next up, we have Matt. Right? Yes, that is Matt's team. I can't read because of the shadow that my head is creating. Up next, we're going to talk about Matt and Bijan Mustard. Okay, jumping in here with Matt's team. As you can see, the logo, Bijan Mustard. First round pick last year, hence the term Bijan. He did take Bijan Robinson. Is anyone surprised? I'm not. We will take over. Matt is one of the few people who have cut players already. So he's down to 33 total players, well under the $500 cap, with a lot of other flexibility that he can potentially take advantage of. So it'll be it'll be much quicker because Matt's already kind of helped us out on which direction he is going to go. So quarterbacks will start off Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, Tua Tagovailoa. Of course, you're going to keep Tua is, at $36, great salary piece. Aaron Rodgers, who knows how many years he has left. As far as, we know there's at least one. He's coming back. Geno Smith, the starter in Seattle, appears to be staying that way. Sam Howell is there. I think that's more of a backup. Running backs, Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, Josh Kelly, Bijan, and Kyron. Obviously, Bijan and Kyron heading that group. Austin Eckler and Joe Mixon combining for $96. And that is potentially a problem. But, salary is already kind of resolved. So it all depends on what you want to do with moves here. Trade value for both of those pieces at that price. Neither one's amazing. Mixon better than Eckler, given the offense in Houston. But at the same time, they both can be cut if needed for whatever reason. Wide receivers: Marquise Brown, Jalen Hyatt, DK Metcalf, Marvin Mims, Darius Slayton, Jalen Waddle, Christian Watson. Not a stellar group. Could definitely see, wide receivers being a target in this draft. Marquise Brown on a $7 million essentially prove-it deal with Kansas City. At least that's how I read this. You sign Marquise, then you go out and you draft another outside receiver like Xavier Worthy. I feel like Worthy is the skyrocket. Marquise Brown's the placeholder. Jalen Hyatt and Darius Slayton on the same team are choices. DK Metcalf obviously going to be staying $45. Thumbs up to that, even at $45. Jalen Waddle at $40, sure. Christian Watson had an injury-plagued season last year. I think that's a good keep. It just comes down to maybe the other three for me, Slayton, Hyatt, and Brown. But all in all, again, cap not an issue. It just depends on which direction you want to go. I will say over the last 3 off seasons, I've noticed Matt is one of the first people to cut. Just get the names off of his roster that he's going to cut, and then he focuses on who actually has trade value. Speaking of trade value, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, 3 tight ends. I have heard that Jonnu Smith had a good camp in Miami. Did not look it up. Not that interested in Miami. I know they're a good offense. But for $9, that could pay off. Kyle Pitts should be much improved, which is hopeful at a $37 price tag. He got smacked in arbitration 2 years ago. And Dalton Kincaid, who probably will get smacked in arbitration this year. So, but for $13, you're going to keep him probably all the way up until 30 or 35 before you ever worry about it. So, good tight end room. Defensively, again, we'll kind of speed through the defense. We're not going to focus too much on it, despite our new scoring that is implemented. Good set of linebackers. Ivan Pace was a very good pickup last year. Lucas Van Ness, I love him for $2. He should improve and step up with a higher role in Green Bay. Jesse Bates, of course, the safety. Massive 263 points based off the scoring on his $2 salary. He's going nowhere. So, all in all, that's Matt's team. He does have, I will real quick pull up the draft picks because I did not, as you can tell, filming this a separate day, different shirt, things changed, like the things on my phone. So, Matt has the third overall pick. He has 2-3, 3-3, and 3-8 to go along with 4-3, 5-3, and 6-3. So he has essentially all of his picks and then an extra third in there. And I think at the third pick, he has options, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the actual draft show as we get closer to the rookie draft, which for us is August 16th. But I do like the makeup of this roster. It is a built roster slowly, and that can, when done right, provide you a lot of longevity in dynasty leagues. So, fantastic way to pick back up for myself since I took a day off. But now we are going to continue, and we are going to go on with Rob's team, a.k.a. Schnorb, a.k.a. OG Swag. All right, and we are here with OG Swag, otherwise known as Schnorb, otherwise known as Rob. A very stout competitor in this league, and one of the, in my personal opinion, one of the more firm trade negotiators that I have encountered. Great guy. Will probably be on the channel very soon for a mock draft as we get closer to the rookie mock draft the rookie draft that starts on August 16th. But we are here to just go and kind of slowly introduce his roster, of course. He has a career 44.7% win percentage in Fiddy Tree. So let us continue on. Starting off with the quarterback room, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, the keys here. Jordan Love at $14, putting up 370 fantasy points, is absolutely a treat. I get the feeling arbitration is probably going to smack him around just a little bit, and as it should. He's a fantastic quarterback, and it's definitely the face of Green Bay going forward. So nothing else to really talk about in that quarterback room. Going to the running backs, several decisions as we get to the draft as well. I will tell you the draft picks momentarily, but James Conner, James Cook, Chuba Hubbard, and Ramondre Stevenson, the top four names here in no particular order. Miles Sanders at $34 is definitely a drop candidate in my opinion. Kenneth Gainwell at $15, probably a drop candidate in my opinion. Definitely keeping Chuba at $7, I think. I know that Jonathan Brooks is there, and he's supposed to take over this number one role as Carolina backfield, but it's never, as it is with everywhere, it's never 100% snaps to one running back, and also he's going to be missing for likely the first 4 weeks at minimum, and then will be moved in slowly. So Chuba Hubbard has probably 7 to 10 weeks of value, even at $7, and even beyond that probably will still be solid. So James Cook and James Conner probably not going anywhere. No real salary constraints in this group either. Ramondre at 33 is fairly priced. James Conner at 31, if he can stay healthy, fairly priced. James Cook at $20, absolute treat. A.J. Dillon is probably another cut candidate at $28. That'd be the only other one besides Miles. And that's why it's easy for Rob here. He's at 626, but he has some options to get down there to the number as far as $500. That will help. In the wide receiver group, Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, the top three names there. Keenan Allen at $41 is probably very close to a cut candidate. I don't think you can really do that. I think with the quarterback approval in Chicago, that's at least a second thought. Obviously, you're not cutting Tyreek Hill at 51 or Devontae Smith at 30. Alan Lazard at $6, maybe Braxton Berrios at $10, probably Rashad Bateman at $7. He has been poised as the wide receiver 2 in a lot of dynasty and redraft league chats, and if that's the case, good for the $7. You can keep him, but it all comes down to how you're going to get to that number, that $500 and below. I know that there's going to be some discussions between a lot of teams in the coming days. Our next video is going to kind of tap into how the off-season trades have worked. The next video that will come out in just a couple days on this channel, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, there's a lot of stud material here as well. Tyreek Hill, obviously, 378 fantasy points in our league for $48 last year. It was a good value. So to the tight end position, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, Luke Musgrave / Tucker Kraft. Those four names, very solid. Dawson Knox, probably a cut candidate at $14. You don't really need him. Won't make the starting lineup for you unless you get 3 tight end injuries. But very, very solid tight end group here. You know, you don't have any. You have Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave who are on their way up boards. But even without them, Goddard and Henry, both very, very fine tight end candidates last year. Hunter Henry, 120 fantasy points. Goddard, 136, as you can see. It's just, they both have, I mean, Hunter Henry was in a bad offense and put that up. The offense should be better. He is now officially the tight end one. There's no one else there. And then, of course, Dallas Goedert, even though that is a little bit of a crowded pass attack in Philadelphia, he got his. And at $27, that's the only issue, is if he can bump that up to 150, 160 points. I think $27 is a fine value for him. Defensively, a couple people that could be cut. Max Crosby at $7, man. Nick Bosa, he was healthy. They're both beasts, unsure. Rashawn Gary, $3 maybe. Chris Jones, $4 maybe. You know, Jordan Brooks down here at $6. $7 for Fred Warner, meh. You know, $6 for Buda Baker, probably not. Buda Baker, words are difficult. But there's ways to get very close to that $500. I am intrigued to see what other moves and what other cuts can be made. I feel like, you know, again, I'm not going to go too much into the draft talk, and we'll talk more about it a little bit with Rob. We don't want to get too much information out of him prior to the draft. But when we do our mock draft, I do want to talk about what his thoughts are in his roster construction just a little bit. Try and pick his brain, and I'm sure he'll probably try and pick mine about my roster. But all about planning your draft picks ahead and where you see your roster comparatively. And I think he's one of the ones where he does that very well. and it's what makes his trade negotiations very stout, because he knows where he wants his team to go, and it doesn't make him, it's not bad by any means, but it's good to have an idea of where you're going and to stick to it. And I think Rob does that a lot. He knows the value of his players too, so big shout out to Rob. But that is Rob's roster. Real quick, I'll give you the draft picks going forward. And he has 1-7, so the 7th overall pick, 3-4, 3-7, 4-2, and 6-7. So no second round pick, 2/3, a 4th, no 5th, and then a late 6th out of all of our draft picks. 1-7 to me is an interesting spot. I'm at 1-6, but 1-7 to 1-9 is an interesting spot in general, and you can even lump me at 1-6 into that, just for how the rest of the draft might break down based on early mocks. But again, we'll talk about that soon. Moving on to the last team for this episode, it is the number 1 overall pick in our draft. It goes to Chris Wacker. He's up next. All right, and last but not least, it is the number 1 overall pick, Chris Wacker, in the War Bortle team. You can see it's a face. Blake Bortles. That's it. I don't know why that took me so long to remember it. It's in the name. It's in the name of the team, and I literally was just the worst. Anyway, Blake Bortles is on a war tour. I don't even know what Pokemon that is. Anyway, I'm sidetracking myself. Super sorry. Number 1 overall pick to Chris here. 1-1, 1-10. So 2 first-round picks. They bookend in the first round. Has 2-1, 2-9, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, and 6-9. Nice. I'm not going to do it again in this video. But I mean, the asset growth here is the big thing, because realistically, this started last year. I believe he was a top 3 pick last year, and kind of got hurt because of Anthony Richardson, who the quarterback that we took, obviously only played 3 games, was out the rest of the season. So we'll take a look at the quarterback room to start off with. A lot of potential out of this roster, to be honest. A lot of potential. I'm not going to hate on this roster at all, but there's also room for growth. It all depends on how it breaks down. Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew are the only 2 quarterbacks you can kind of trust. Richardson, obviously, invested in by Indianapolis. Gardner Minshew in a fight for a start at the Raiders. Raiders not going to be a great offense. Justin Fields at $44. Bye-bye. Taysom Hill as well, $10. Solid value, but also up there in age for his multi-purpose gameplay that he's thrown into between being a tight end and a quarterback and a running back. Jacoby Brissett could be a starting day 1 or week 1 Patriot quarterback, but I don't think you get very far into the season before you see Drake May take over. So $4, it's worth keeping him, at least in the short term. So yeah, some work to be done at the quarterback position, and I think that's the first, having the first overall pick, you have the choice of Caleb, so it's probably not much of a surprise that many of us would expect Caleb to go first to this team. At the running back position, also needs a fair amount of help. Tank Bigsby Gus Edwards is probably the only full-time, and full-time is being generous, but he's a full-time starter for the Chargers. Also the only running back to have over 200 points on this roster. Alexander Madison was a letdown in Minnesota last year. Jaleel McLaughlin came on for a little bit while Javonte Williams was having a bit of an off season last year. Not expected to be the same in Denver this year. But for $6, good handcuff option. The rest of it, cuts. Matt Breida at $14. Honestly, I think Alexander Madison at $26 is probably an option. Jamal Williams at $13. It's all of those names, and then some others could be let go for some needed cap room, attack free agency with that. Wide receiver, different story than running back. Very deep, very, very deep. Nico Collins, Drake London, George Pickens, Calvin Ridley, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Garrett Wilson. Take your pick. Stacked wide receiver room. It kind of rules out the MHJ at the first overall pick. I was looking at it just last night, texted one of the other guys in the league, and I said, is he taking Marvin Harrison Jr.? And he goes, no, definitely Caleb Williams. Don't overthink it. And he's right. It's just you look at this and you just go, where does he fit in with these wide receivers that are growing? At the time of recording, Brandon Ayuk is not officially going to Pittsburgh. That's the only thing that I can see would sway this any which way, and it doesn't leave the depth any less fantastic here. Nico Collins in Houston, fantastic offense. Garrett Wilson will be a factor as long as Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy. Jackson Smith and Jigba looking like a breakout candidate. Calvin Ridley from Tennessee now going to see increased targets and attention probably the first 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks without DeAndre Hopkins that are likely in the mix. Obviously, Pickens is a better quarterback. Darnell Mooney, he's a handcuff in Atlanta. Rondale Moore went down with an injury in practice, a non-contact knee injury. We all know what that means. Basically, to sum it up. Gabriel Davis, probably the third wide receiver on Jacksonville. I imagine Brian Thomas Jr. overtakes him pretty quickly. And then Drake London, who's going to be the wide receiver one in Atlanta with a better quarterback. So there's a lot of improvement from the offseason moves that have helped out this wide receiver core, and that's why I say there's potential here. It comes down to filling in that QB role and going running back immediately after it. Tight end needs a little help as well. Daniel Bellinger got a little bit more appealing with Darren Waller, who is retiring, or did retire. Juwan Johnson will be healthy at some point this season and is a tight end target hog in New Orleans. Trey McBride, huge second-year leap last year, and expect the third year to be just as good, I think, even with Marvin Harrison Jr. The reason I say that is because this 181 points it all came later in the season. Zach Ertz was there for the first half of last season, and then he got injured, and that really opened up the doors for Trey McBride. Now you will have a Kyler Murray, you will have an effective offense, a better offensive line, knock on wood. And that'll all help, I think, that offense flow a little better. It's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride. That's going to be it. Running, it's going to be James Conner. Trey Benson may factor in a little bit at the beginning, more so at the end of the year. And then defensively, plenty of money you can ship out. Shaq Leonard, $12. He's a free agent. Let it go. Patrick Queen at $5. Meh, potentially. Troy Anderson at $3. Not interested myself. $8 for Myles Garrett. Meh. Jalen Phillips at $5, not interested. A couple of the cornerbacks and safeties can also go, just overpopulated down there. And he's only at 519 right now. I mean, there is so many options to get him down into the low 400s or high 300s. J.K. Dobbins at 32 and Mike Williams at 25 on the IR. Both of them can probably be released. I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to find a healthy season no matter whose knees are under him. Sorry, buddy. And then Mike Williams, who is the probably third or fourth wide receiver in the Jets. You already have Garrett Wilson. Doesn't help you. Bye-bye. So we'll talk again. Third time I've said this, third straight team. Interested from the position. I mean, he has 3 of the first 11 picks, 4 of the first 19 picks in this draft. And the rebuild can quickly go up. We can go through the bottom, the dip of the rebuild real quick with this draft, because of where the positions are. There are 3 teams that have 3 picks in the first 18 picks of this draft. I am one of them. Chris Wacker here is another one. And then Colton's team, which we covered in the last episode. Yes, in the last episode. That have those, 3 of those picks in those first 18. And I don't think that me or Colton, personally, I don't think me or Colton are set up as well as Chris is. So it all depends on using the picks the right way, obviously, but it shows the importance of draft capital when your team doesn't have a lot. I mean, obviously the first round pick is his, the first overall pick is his, the first overall pick in the second round is his, and then he also has that bookend pick at the end of the first round, which was a great asset, and he made that trade, last year, and is going to benefit from it now. So I really like the potential for this roster. It just has to be filled in. So a great job by Wacker to get the assets, and hopefully the growth can be experienced at the other side of the draft and free agency. All right, that is going to do it for the other 9 teams, and it is also going to do it for episode 2 of the Employee of the Month. Next episode, we're going to tap into some of the off-season stuff that's already happened. We're going to get some trade grades from myself, and you're going to get a little bit of an insight on my roster and how we got here today. However, for now, my name is Derek from the Fantasy Flyer. I hope you are enjoying the Fiddy Tree series. As I have done several times, I'm going to end the show with the same ending that we've had for 2 seasons. Please welcome back, rest in peace, Bob Barker. We'll see you guys very soon. Take care.
Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care.